Seneca wrote that wealth is a tool for the wise and a trap for the foolish. He wrote this from a villa worth $300 million in modern terms. His critics had one word for that. He had an answer. By the time Seneca was at the height of his influence, he had accumulated estates across Spain, Egypt, and Italy. He had made loans across Britain at rates that some historians argue contributed to a regional revolt. He owned more than most Roman senators. He was also, simultaneously, the most widely read Stoic philosopher of his generation. The contradiction was public. His critics attacked him directly in the Senate. How does a man who preaches poverty justify 300 million? How does someone who writes about the irrelevance of material wealth actively accumulate it? Seneca did not deflect the question. He answered it in his letters and essays, directly and with full awareness of how it appeared. His answer was not a rationalization. It was a philosophy of relationship to wealth, one that is more precise than anything most founders have articulated about their own money. Seneca's position on wealth rested on a distinction that Stoic philosophy makes clearly and that most people never apply. The distinction is between preference and attachment. Stoics called certain things preferred indifference. Health is better than illness. Wealth is better than poverty. But neither is the source of virtue, and neither is necessary for a good life. The philosopher can prefer wealth without needing it. The key variable is not possession. It is dependence. Seneca wrote that the wise person can live with wealth without being controlled by it, but only if they have genuinely tested their ability to live without it, not in theory, in practice. He described exercises he ran on himself, periods of voluntary simplicity, weeks where he ate as a poor man ate, wore rough clothing, slept on a hard surface, not as punishment, as calibration. The goal was to answer a specific question. If this wealth disappeared tomorrow, would I still be functional? If the answer was yes, the wealth was a tool. If the answer was no, it had become something else. This is the first principle. The test of attachment is not how you feel about wealth when you have it. It is how you would function if it were gone. The second principle. Wealth creates obligation. Seneca managed those entanglements with discipline, minimizing dependencies, avoiding debt to people rather than institutions, maintaining the ability to walk away from any arrangement. The third principle. The public perception of wealth is a separate problem from wealth itself. Seneca wrote that he could not control what his critics said about his money. He could control whether their criticism was accurate. He ran his life so that the criticism was technically true but philosophically wrong. The money did not own him. He lived with the contradiction openly. That openness was itself the argument. Most founders have a confused relationship with money, not because they are careless, because they have never been forced to articulate what money is actually for in their specific situation. Seneca's framework produces 3 questions worth sitting with. 1. What number represents genuine security for you versus the number you are actually chasing? These are almost always different numbers. Security has a floor. The number founders chase is typically set by comparison to the last funding round, to a competitor's exit, to an arbitrary figure that moves every time it is approached. 2. Have you ever tested your relationship to money by voluntarily operating without it? Not dramatically, practically. Spent a month tracking every discretionary expense and eliminating everything that was not structurally necessary. The result of that exercise tells you which of your expenses are tools and which are dependencies. 3. What would you do differently if the company's valuation dropped by 80% tomorrow? The answer to that question reveals whether you are operating from a stable foundation or whether your identity is leveraged against a number. Seneca's conclusion was that wealth managed well is not a contradiction of Stoic principles. It is an advanced application of them. The philosopher who can handle poverty can also handle wealth. The person who has never tested their relationship to scarcity cannot trust their relationship to abundance. Most founders assume that building financial security will produce clarity. Seneca's observation was the reverse. Clarity produces the ability to build financial security without being consumed by it. Seneca was not a hypocrite. He was running an experiment on himself in public and documenting the results. The principle, wealth is not the problem, dependence is. Test the difference before the market does it for you. Follow if you want to become unbreakable.